A rare white lion moves silently across the African savanna. Its pale coat glows against the golden grass, a genetic rarity that few people will ever see in the wild. But how does that striking white skin travel from a protected landscape in southern Africa to a luxury fashion showroom in the United States? What happens in between wildlife conservation laws and high-end leather boutiques? White lions are not a separate species. Most are African lions carrying a rare genetic trait known as leucism, which gives their fur a pale color. Populations connected to regions like Timbavati and Kruger National Park have drawn global attention for decades. Any legal trade involving lion products must follow strict international rules. Under CITES, the Global Wildlife Trade Treaty, exports require verified permits and documentation. When shipments reach the United States, federal authorities inspect them to ensure compliance with wildlife protection laws. If approved, preserved hides undergo professional tanning. This process stabilizes the material, protects its color, and prepares it for skilled craftsmanship. The finished products are often limited edition luxury items, marketed with full certification. Behind each piece lies a complex path shaped by genetics, regulation, commerce, and ongoing debate about conservation and responsibility. Albino and white lions are among the rarest natural variations in the wild. These pale-coated lions are most famously connected to regions near Timbavati and Kruger National Park, where sightings over the past several decades have drawn global attention. Their striking color often leads to confusion, but most white lions are not true albinos. Instead, their appearance usually comes from a recessive genetic trait called leucism. Unlike albinism, leucism reduces pigmentation without causing the red eyes or full loss of melanin seen in albino animals. Because these lions are so rare, they attract interest not only from wildlife enthusiasts, but also from niche luxury markets seeking unusual materials. That is where international law becomes critical. Global wildlife trade is regulated under CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. This treaty requires exporting countries to issue verified permits and confirm that any trade does not threaten the survival of the species in the wild. In the United States, lion-related products are also subject to federal wildlife import laws. Shipments must include detailed documentation, proof of legal origin, and inspection upon entry. Without proper authorization, products can be seized and penalties may apply. This issue matters today because demand for rare and exotic materials continues to intersect with conservation, legality, and ethics. As luxury fashion markets expand, so does public scrutiny. Consumers increasingly want transparency about sourcing, while conservationists focus on protecting vulnerable wildlife populations. At the center of this discussion is a complex question. Can regulated trade, strict oversight, and informed consumer choices coexist with long-term wildlife conservation? The process begins with source identification. In cases where trade is permitted by law, materials must come from controlled environments or government-approved wildlife management programs. These programs are subject to oversight and are required to document how animals are acquired and managed. Before any commercial transaction can move forward, official paperwork must be completed. This includes permits, ownership records, and proof that the activity meets both local and international regulations. Next comes regulatory clearance. Export permits must be issued and verified under the guidelines of CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. The goal is to ensure that trade does not threaten wild populations. Once a shipment reaches the United States, federal authorities inspect it for compliance with wildlife import laws. If documentation is incomplete or inconsistent, the shipment can be denied entry. If approved, hide processing begins. Preservation starts immediately after removal to prevent natural decomposition. The tanning process then stabilizes the collagen fibers inside the skin, transforming raw hide into durable leather. Because white coloration is rare and delicate, specialized conditioning and light treatment techniques are used to maintain the pale tone, while protecting the material's strength. In the manufacturing phase, skilled craftsmen carefully cut and shape the leather into limited edition products. These are typically small accessories rather than large, mass-produced items. Each finished piece may include certification documents, confirming its legal origin. Finally, distribution and retail. Focus on exclusivity. Products are marketed as rare collectibles and are often sold through private showrooms or select boutiques where documentation and traceability remain part of the presentation. White lions often appear so unique that many people assume they are a separate species. In reality, they are African lions carrying a rare genetic trait. This condition, known as leucism, reduces pigmentation in the fur while leaving the animal otherwise biologically the same. As other lions, the pale coat may look extraordinary, but genetically, these lions belong to the same species as the familiar golden-colored African lion. Rarity plays a powerful role in economics. In niche markets where unusual materials are valued, scarcity can significantly increase price. Because white lion hides are extremely uncommon, a single legally documented hide can command very high prices among collectors. That exclusivity is part of what drives attention in luxury circles. However, it's important to place this trade in context. Exotic wildlife leather represents only a tiny fraction of the global leather industry. The overwhelming majority of leather products worldwide come from cattle, which supply fashion, automotive, and furniture industries on a massive scale. Compared to that volume, wildlife-based materials occupy a small and highly specialized segment. At the same time, consumer attitudes in the United States have shifted noticeably in recent years. Many shoppers now ask detailed questions about sourcing, animal welfare, and environmental impact. Transparency has become a marketing priority for major brands. In response to public pressure, some luxury fashion houses have announced decisions to phase out or completely avoid exotic wildlife skins. These changes reflect a broader trend. Today's market is influenced not only by rarity and craftsmanship, but also by evolving values around ethics and sustainability. Quality control begins with international oversight. Trade involving protected wildlife species must comply with the standards set by CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Under this framework, every approved transaction requires documentation that traces the material from its source to its final destination. Export permits, origin records, and transport details are reviewed to confirm that the activity does not threaten wild populations. Once shipments move across borders, additional safeguards apply. Independent inspections may verify paperwork, confirm species identification, and review shipping records. In the United States, federal authorities examine imported wildlife products to ensure they meet legal requirements. If documentation is incomplete or inconsistent, shipments can be delayed, denied, or seized. These procedures are designed to reduce illegal trade and improve accountability across the supply chain. Supporters of tightly regulated trade argue that controlled commercial use can generate revenue for conservation programs. In some regions, fees and permits are directed toward habitat management, anti-poaching efforts, and wildlife monitoring. From this perspective, structured oversight can create financial incentives to protect land and species. However, critics raise concerns about long-term ecological impact. They question whether commercial demand could increase pressure on vulnerable populations or create loopholes that are difficult to monitor. For them, biodiversity protection should take priority over market interests. At the center of the discussion is an ongoing ethical debate. Can controlled commercial systems truly support conservation goals? Or does long-term sustainability require limiting trade altogether? The answer continues to shape policy, public opinion, and the future of wildlife management worldwide. The journey from a rare white lion in Africa to a luxury fashion product is far more complex than it may first appear. What begins as an uncommon genetic trait in the wild moves through a tightly controlled system of permits, inspections, processing, and craftsmanship. Along the way, it becomes part of a global conversation that extends well beyond fashion. This process is highly regulated, shaped by international agreements, national laws, and detailed documentation requirements. Every legal step is designed to ensure traceability and oversight. Yet even within that structure, the subject remains deeply controversial. For some, regulated trade represents a way to balance economic value with conservation funding. For others, it raises difficult questions about the role of wildlife in commercial markets. At its core, this issue sits at the crossroads of conservation, commerce, and consumer demand. Luxury brands respond to buyers seeking rare and exclusive materials. Governments respond to conservation priorities and international agreements. Consumers increasingly respond to ethical concerns, asking where products come from and how they are sourced. In today's fashion industry, transparency is no longer optional, it is expected. Buyers want proof of origin, clear documentation, and assurance that laws are followed. As public awareness grows, the future of rare wildlife materials may depend less on how unusual they are, and more on how responsibly they are managed. Ultimately, the story is not only about rarity, it is about accountability, evolving values, and the choices that shape how humans interact with the natural world.